Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron. I'm pretty tired, Joel. I gotta warn you. I don't know how this podcast is gonna go. I can barely keep my eyes open, actually.
I wish we were recording in person. I could just slap you across the face
I mean, okay.
to wake you up. Yeah, you see people do that in the movies.
Okay. But I just kind of wanted to talk about the reason why I'm so tired. And it was I did something last night that I haven't done for a long time.
Okay.
And it got a little out of hand. And I feel some way about it. I think it's important to share it with the Mastering Laravel community.
And with me, this is news to me. I love it.
Yeah, which is I was working on a little side project in a different language in Python.
Oh, traitor.
And I just couldn't quit it. I was just working into the night. And you know how it is.
Not a literal, I couldn't exit the editor. Like you just were so... You're just so into it, you couldn't stop. Okay.
I wouldn't even say into it. I would say at first I was into it, and then it turned into something else. And that's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit today.
Okay.
Which is, it was really difficult to work on this task because basically I'm working on something actually in MicroPython. And it's nice because Python has enough similarities between itself and PHP and JavaScript that I can sort of program Python, but I can't. Okay. So already I'm, it's a little frustrating. You're like, okay, I know how it is, but I don't really do this. Yeah. So like, this is how the import works for Python versus, what I know how to do in JavaScript or something like that. Right. So you got this one frustration mark, right? The second thing is that it's actually MicroPython, which is a subset of Python. So sure. All the APIs don't necessarily exist, and the ones that do maybe are different. And it's a great solution, just it's hard to find all the answers. And the people who work in that technology are really smart and really focused on their thing. So all their answers are focused on, if you know what you're talking about, their answer is focused on that. It'd be like if someone came to, Laravel community and said, hey, so what's a .env file? And we said, well, the best thing to do in Laravel is to actually configure your config file into different PHP files and use your environment, and we go on this whole spiel. It's like, well, that's actually great information for that person to know. And it's also harmful in a way because you just gave them too much and they don't even know how to process that.
They don't have the context to use what you gave them. Yeah. So like with the MicroPython thing, it might even be you search for an answer and you get on Stack Overflow and the answer would work great in Python, but not in MicroPython. So like you had that other layer of like translation to do when trying to get your answer.
Yeah. And so then we step it on further. It's actually working against an ESP32 board. So it's a piece of hardware. And I'm used to working with software just solely, so if something doesn't work, Control C and Control X or, whatever, reboot it or whatever. Yeah. Whereas, I found myself, okay, so flashing firmware and then sending it up there. And it reminded me of compiler days when I used to work in Pascal. You'd have to go and, you write your stuff, you compile it, you run it, that whole process of, different languages that need to be compiled versus the, runtime compile like we use in PHP and stuff like that. So you got that going on. And so all these different things were really stacking up. And it was getting later into the night. And then I was getting that feeling. Like, I got to finish this, but also, why am I the worst?
Oh, no.
Why am I the worst at this? Why can't I figure this out? I'll never be able to figure this out. I shouldn't have even started this project. And so I don't think that's probably a unique feeling for a lot of programmers. And it's also, it's a fun sort of feeling to experience on your side project too, because you don't even have to do this.
That's right. You're being frustrated by choice.
Right. And that's the reason I kind of want to talk about it is because a lot of times we talk to people and we say, do a side project or push yourself a little bit further. and we don't necessarily address that feeling that comes with that, which is what I'm talking about right now. So I thought I'd share that, be a little bit vulnerable, and maybe ask you, Joel, do you have any steps, maybe when you run into something like that, that you take to keep yourself in line?
First of all, I have to go back. You said frustration mark, and I'm picturing some new piece of punctuation. So I don't know. Maybe there's an emoji that we could use, but I'm like, I like frustration mark right next to exclamation point and question mark.
Oh, there's a what? Well, that's right next to the interrobang.
Terrible. That's there you go. Maybe that's the frustration mark.
Yeah,
I like that because it's like what it's got like both of the
yeah.
emotions in there. Okay, I'll try to be helpful now. I I can actually relate a little bit to what you're saying, and it's not in the context of a side project.
Okay,
But I was recently, doing some continuing education, and there was like a web app. Python. It wasn't web app. It was just application development, and Python was the language. And I kind of went through some of the same things. I didn't have the layers you did with MicroPython and hardware,
right.
um, but it was just sort of like, I know how to do this. Like, how do I do it in this thing? And the frustration of that. And
Mm-hmm.
um, you're not going to like this, but I actually did use some of the Chat GPT to like ask the question, how does this concept translate from how does this concept for PHP translate to Python? And I would say it was, I'm making numbers up, but 90% of the time it was pretty helpful because I didn't even know sometimes the question to ask. Like you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about imports, and there's common programming terms like variable scope or loop or things like that. But then you like, especially when you start dealing with packages and like different APIs, it's like, I don't even know what this is called in Python. So
Right.
that was one thing I found useful, to try to take the knowledge I have and like, how does this translate into this other environment? I don't know if that sits with you well at all, or if that's even something you tried or considered.
Yeah, there actually, I think there was a website. We'll have to see if we can figure it out and put it in the show notes, which was there's something like if you know this language, this is how you do that in that language.
Oh, okay. Like a reference that just exists.
Yeah, I mean it
Hmm.
wasn't super detailed, but it was enough to like kind of get you going on some of the stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I've used that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that makes sense. You kind of take like I said, you take what you know and you kind of adjust it to this new paradigm and say, okay,
Yeah.
then use the tools. The other thing that I found helpful, which was to remind myself that I've been programming PHP now for 2 decades.
Wow.
Um, and I just started this thing 2 hours ago.
Right. Yeah.
So to put stuff in proper context
Yeah.
too is even if you've only been programming for a year or two and you take on the next thing, remember that
Yeah.
everything's kind of like it rises exponentially too. So the things that were easier for you to learn or that were harder for you to learn before are going to become easier and easier, and new things will become harder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So kind of managing, because I sort of address the technical side of it.
Yeah.
But there's the emotional side of it too, which is like the frustration and the self-doubt and like, maybe the experience you had, another PHP developer would be like, you know what, before I work on this side project, I'm going to completely port this whole ESP library or whatever to PHP, and then I could just do the thing that I know how to do.
Right.
I've seen that so many times where a project that works perfectly well in another language is ported just for that familiarity. But yeah, I think what you said about like reining in your expectations based on the length of experience you have in one domain and this new domain being radically different. Um, the other thing too, I don't know if this is probably harder to do when you're late at night and you're already a little tired and maybe cranky and you
Mhm.
just want this
Mhm.
thing to work, but almost like try to recapture the fun you had when you were first learning programming. Because I know for myself, I learned it just as a hobby. Like I wasn't learning it to accomplish a business objective or to get a job or anything like that. And it was just kind of fun, like, bouncing into things. I'm like, wow, what does that mean? Like, I don't know tactically how to do that, but like there is that mindset of a challenge, like doing a puzzle is fun. Being stuck isn't fun, but if you can reframe it, like it might might help that emotional side of it.
Yeah, I think I can definitely see that when you make the advances that you want to make,
Yeah.
or when it's not 2 a.m. and you can see
Hmm.
the end. Oh man, that's what it was last night, 2 a.m. And I know there's like, a half an hour left of good work to
Right.
get this
Yeah.
working. And boy, did that half an hour stretch out to be another hour. And then I said, you know what? The problem is me.
We recently took a family vacation down to Florida, and one of the things we did that was fun was we went to the Kennedy Space Center, Aaron. And I'm not really like a space nut or anything, but I like technology. I like history, and it was cool. And so like one of the things that you can do is they have a bus tour that kind of takes you through, outside of the museum theme park area and kind of out to some other historical sites, and the launch pads and all these different things. And so one of them was the original control center where like all the Apollo missions ran. Right, it's still there. Like all the computers and stuff are still set up, and it was like it was like the geeky part of me really enjoyed that.
That sounds a lot like something you'd like.
Yeah, I did. And so, and they even simulated one of the launches, and like the computers lit up, and the different screens, and like all these things happened. But anyways, when you finish that part of the tour, you walk under like one of the giant Saturn rockets, but you get to the end, and there's stuff about the moon landing, right? And one of the things you can do is they have like an actual bit of moon rock that you can touch. You're not supposed to touch a lot of stuff in this thing, but like they have this one rock where like you can go touch it. And so, a lot of people did it. There was actually a little bit of a line to like get to go touch the moon rock. And so our group,
Gross.
I know, we're like, I don't know, it's not a super long line, 2-3 minutes. My dad is with us. We get up to it, and like all of us touch the moon rock, and he's just got his arms crossed. And I'm like, we just waited in line. Are you going to touch the moon rock? He's like, I don't care. I'd like it just kind of like boggled my mind because there's not a lot of opportunities I think you'll get to like touch a moon rock.
No, 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 no. Your dad is my spirit animal.
Okay, this is what I was going to say. Would you touch the moon rock, Aaron? And if not, why? What's your reasoning?
No, and bec- I don't even understand how you can ask why.
Is it a germ thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, put some hand sanitizer on your hands when you're done. You touched the moon rock now.
But why would I need to touch the moon rock?
Because it's like from space.
So?
Okay, all right. So
I'm
never getting you and my dad in the same room.
Well, there's a lot of cool stuff that I don't have to touch to appreciate.
It like, okay, so I was thinking about this the rest of that day, and I'm like, it is a little dumb to like be like, "Ooh, I have to touch that thing." Like, do I have to taste it? You know what I mean? Like, what are all the senses I have to involve? But there is something cool about like seeing a moon, the moon up in the sky, and it's like this distant thing I'll never go to because I won't. I hate space. I would never go into space. And now here's a chance I can like touch a little chunk, so it like makes it more real and connects me to it. But you're not buying it. I get it.
No, just not my thing. I guess I'll just look at the moon and think, wow, Joel had his hands on you. It's embarrassing, actually. There's a place where there's people around all the time. I should have just messaged them in the random channel, and I didn't.
Are you talking about the Mastering Laravel community? If you want to check that out and see what Aaron's talking about, head to masteringlaravel.io and click on community.